What did the pandemic ruin more than we realize? I'm not sure if anyone else feels the same way, but my perception of time hasn't really returned back to normal since then. It ruined me on traffic. For one glorious year, as an essential worker, I had the roads almost entirely to myself. It was beautiful. Grocery shopping at 2 a.m. was the best thing ever. Now I have to shop with the rest of you hooligans and it ducking sucks. I work second shift, get off at 11 p.m. Used to do all my shopping after work, now everything is closed by the time I get off and I have to do all my shopping during the day. I hate it so much. Used to be plenty of options to grab a quick bite to eat on the way home as well. Half the time even McDonald's is closed by the time I leave work nowadays. Nothing being 24 hours anymore is awful. Night shift people lives. Nothing is ever open late anymore. Just went into the night shift recently and realized this. No food. No errands. There's the gyms and you're home and that's your life. Gyms aren't open either where I'm at. No more 24-hour Planet Fitness. They close at 12 and open at 6. My perception on money. I worked so hard to pay off debt, save up for a new house, get promotions. Now with the rise of housing costs and inflation, I feel like money is literally such a made-up thing and I have no control over anything even with all the right decisions. 2 steps forwards, followed by 3 steps backwards. As someone who saw the dot-com fall and the 2008 shenanigans and then this. It all feels like it feels like there is just no point to working harder at all. These fat cats just come in, take a giant shit on all the grit in the litter box and walk away expecting someone else to clean it. And then someone does. They get loans that are forgiven, they get bailed out, they get off with no repercussions and we are just left. Covered in excrement. Media, the economy's crashing. Millennials, gearing up for the 3rd recession of their working lives. Yep, it does that. Yep, millennial here. Me, ooh, maybe I can buy a house soon. Goalposts, shift. Also millennial. I just recently decided to switch my goal from buying a house to buying a condo. It sucks seeing people 4 to 5 years older than me and at the same socioeconomic level having a house from before the market took off, but what can you do? I feel like everyone is more bitter now. Like we all saw through the sham of society. Time feels different now. Things just feel off compared to pre-2020. When my country went into lockdown, I was free to continue working, and traffic was essentially non-existent. As soon as lockdowns finished, it seemed as though there was a huge increase in aggression on the road. People became so much more dumb and aggressive when driving. As a delivery driver, I can confirm this. It started with the pandemic, but I think the economy is also affecting people's moods and their driving. It seems like drivers are getting worse by the day. Like they don't even care if they kill themselves or other people with their petty road rage. Price of eating out. Fast food is now almost the same price as a cheap sit-down restaurant pre-COVID. It's often cheaper to go to a fast casual sit-down than to go to McDonald's for my family of 3. This might just be local, but where I live, a shit ton of businesses closed. I mean, half of them were closed. Not just because of the shutdown, they were closed permanently. I think the pandemic was the nail in the coffin for a lot of businesses that were already on the edge of just making it, and others have continued to struggle because, well, things are just more expensive. I've noticed I no longer go to sit-down restaurants because my grocery bills are so expensive. Why go spend $40, $50 for one meal when it costs $150, $200 every 2 weeks for groceries? It just doesn't make sense anymore for a lot of people. I think the dining experience changed as a whole post-pandemic. Lots of places had to resort to DoorDash-type businesses to make up for losses, and that in itself has changed the dining experience. No school on snow days. Our town directly said that snow days are a joyful part of childhood and they would keep snow days. I'm sure it also has to do with power outages. If some kids don't have power and can't tune in, or if teachers from other towns don't have power and can't teach, but I thought it was a nice sentiment. As a teacher, I can say that it's definitely affected kids in a way people don't realize. Kids who had their first year of school, or even second, during the pandemic act quite different than kids who had a normal introduction to school. Many of them seem to have fewer social skills and higher anxiety than kids from previous years. We were never in this together. I'm in healthcare. We were heroes when needed, but when we aren't, we are flexed off the schedule without pay. I'm sure the office folks that aren't on the floor providing the actual care get paid though. I no longer recommend going into healthcare for anybody. Heroes only exist to make the idea of death more palatable to the average person. A healthcare worker who died as a result of exposure to an unknown pathogen with no protective equipment is sad, but a hero who gave their life in protecting their community from a new disease with no regard for their own safety can be spun as a feel-good story by the ones in charge so they don't have to answer for their bullshit. It's the same with military heroes who risk their lives on a suicide mission to save their friends in a war that never should have happened, orchestrated by those who don't feel the consequences. In most stories, the hero saves the day and is showered in gifts, wealth, and status. But we go right back to being expendable, faceless numbers as soon as we are no longer a convenient scapegoat. Used car market is completely ducked, as are flight prices. The cost of living is pretty ducked. Food prices just keep going up. We're buying less than ever, and more genericless premium version of everything, and yet we're paying easily twice as much as our far more luxurious and full cart of groceries we were getting in 2010. Every single ducking time I go to the store, they've raised prices on something. I tend to buy a lot of the same things frequently, so I am able to keep track of prices. I was getting this bag of iceberg lettuce for $2.19 a couple weeks ago, and they just popped it up to $2.99. That's a crazy jump. I can't afford like 90% of the stuff in there anymore. It's like $5 for a can of goddamn soup. Soup used to be cheap food that you could stock up on, now it's a luxury item. When you break out the price increase as a percentage, it's insane. Yes, bananas only went up 25 cents, but they went from 15 cents to 40 cents, 166% increase. Your lettuce only went up 80 cents, but that's nearly 40%. Aldi used to be the place to go for cheap food that's still fresh, no dollar store crap, that's usually a worse value for what you get anyway. I've been buying the exact same coffee for years, and it started out at $3.99, now it's $6.99. Coffee used to be something I could stock up on. Now I think twice about making a fresh pot. Kroger used to have a discount produce stall. Sometimes it was ugly fruit, sometimes it was slightly older veggies you'd need to cook that day. It's always picked clean now, along with a discount bakery card and the manager's special meat. People literally follow the employee marking the discount meat and snatch it up as soon as they put it out. Any type of 247 business is just a memory. I can't trust the hours of any business on Google anymore. Places just close whenever the duck now. I walked 2 miles to get a coffee at 6 p.m. and the building was completely dark. Google said they were open until 9. I went to go get Taco Bell at 10 o'clock and it was closed. I'm sorry you had to go through that. We are in this together. Don't give up. Essential versus non-essential employees, better known as those who had to show up physically in person, and those allowed to stay home. Biggest division in the workplace. Mentally, it will never be the same in the workplace. And how quickly we went from essential workers and heroes back to burger flippers as soon as it was time to switch out of pandemic relief mode. I work for a freight railroad. Our contract negotiations were held off because of the pandemic. During the pandemic, we were told we were heroes, essential. We made sure the economy kept moving while everyone else was in lockdown. Then when contract negotiations resumed, the rail companies collectively said this: the carriers maintain that capital investment and risk are the reasons for their profits, not any contributions from labor. It's beyond infuriating. Work for one, the builders, and they give us we pay cost of labor, not cost of living. Feels like it's a more to each their own sense of living. People don't appear to be as connected as before the pandemic. The pandemic brought me much closer to my wife and son. It also made me incredibly jaded, cynical, and much less trusting of everyone outside of these walls. Independent smaller music venues never really recovered. The lockdowns happened during my last semester of university. I've never had an in-person job, only work from home, which I realize is a blessing but also makes it feel like it's not real. I have no work friends, have never met my supervisor in person. I do all my work from my desk in my room. It feels like pretend. I worked for almost a year during COVID for a company without meeting anyone in person. It was like a really dull video game until I met people. Now it's like a really stressful video game. Sometimes I break eye contact in meeting just to remind myself I'm not there with everybody on the meeting, I'm really alone.